Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him. Few stories capture the imagination like that of the wise ones who arrive from the east. Who were these mysterious figures who came to worship the King of the Jews, whose star they had seen? The story we tell in answer is a little bit like a mosaic, a patchwork of scriptural cross-reference and imaginative embellishment. Much as we insert ox and ass into the nativity scene, with license granted by the first chapter of the prophet Isaiah, so with appeal to Psalm 72 and Isaiah 60, we make our magi kings and place them upon a regal train of camels journeying from afar to bring 3 gifts. Hence, we suppose, there were 3 people, Caspar, Melchior and Balthazar, as we might chalk our lintels on the feast of the Epiphany. Yet the great sweep of Christian tradition has at times imagined 2, 4, or 12 magi, and identified these mysterious travellers with figures as diverse as Persian astrologers and philosophers, or members of an ancient Jewish sect. What are we to make of it all, and what might the story of the Magi awaken within us today? Like many deep truths of Scripture, we are not faced with an either-or. Just as Advent prepares us not only for Christ's birth, but also for his second coming at the end of time, and for our present encounter with Christ in word and sacrament, so the story of the Magi ought to attune our minds to polyphony, not one note. Matthew's Gospel was first written in Hebrew for Jewish Christians. Thus we ought to attune ourselves to the Jewish story of exiled royal high priests from ancient times who kept rituals of purification and held fast to the prophecy about a star in the book of Numbers. These Magi believed the Davidic king was divine, so they journeyed to worship the King of the Jews, who was Emmanuel, God with us. Yet we might remember too the last verse of Matthew's Gospel, Christ's commission to make disciples of all the nations, and see the Magi as prefiguring the universal scope of the Gospel, which is the power of salvation for all who meet its words of life, regardless of nation or identity. How splendid and necessary to be reminded that the Christ child we worship so often subverts the divisive earthly barriers we erect. And then there are the gifts themselves, gold, frankincense and myrrh. They are not practical, but gifts of homage, acknowledging true royal splendour in the forgotten poverty of Bethlehem. In the words of Pope Leo, he that acknowledges Christ, the King of the universe, brings gold from the treasure of his heart. He that believes the only begotten of God to have united our true nature to himself offers myrrh, and he that confesses him in no wise inferior to the Father's majesty worships him in a manner with incense. And all this lavished upon so unpromising a scene, the night heaven broke into the world, and God revealed himself in unimportant squalor, not the polished corridors of state. Yet that paradox might draw us back to the object of the Magi's search, the King of the Jews. Where have we heard that before? King of the Jews was the title jealously guarded by Herod the Great, who would have heard nothing from the Magi but the rumour of rivalry and threat. The great prophets had always claimed that another Davidic king would be the Messiah and would save Judah and Israel. They would be the dawn from on high, who would break upon the world, liberating it from the darkness in which it was enslaved. And the star in the dawn sky was to be their sign. Small wonder, then, that Herod's fearful tyranny was all too quickly turned to murderous intent. His is the response of wicked earthly power when confronted by the astonishing, disarming truth of love, a knee-jerk reaction of scapegoat and sacrifice, denial and deceit. And this is why we've heard the phrase King of the Jews before. It is placed above Jesus as he hangs on the cross. In the beginning is the end, though that end is a beginning for us all. The fragrance of myrrh points to life through death. So many notes, and there are so many more, which make up this riotous symphony of truth. Yet perhaps all we really need to remember is that something drew those mysterious magi to move, to stretch sinew and endure cold, to strive and to risk. And that was wonder, that glorious fecund thing which longs for birth in us all at the slightest thought of our being. And Advent is a season for the wide open sea of wonder to pour into our hearts and soak its way through all that we see and think and say and do. The real journey of the Magi is the pilgrimage of our hearts, as they make their way, each day afresh, into the rest and embrace of Christ. Today, and every day, is the time to join those Magi in pilgrim progress and walk, haphazard by starlight, straight into the kingdom of heaven.